Welcome back to most things about Series 3 Stage 1 Landrovers. Just starting to do a bit on the chassis. As you can see, I've got it up on a rotator and mostly stripped, brake lines and well, it's really only brake lines and the little brake clips, chassis clips to do, and done one bush there, another bush, a few bits and pieces. But the whole point of this video is basically we're going to hot dip galvanise this one. Look, the chassis is good enough. Like it's got a bit, well, it's nowhere near as bad as what we've seen or what others experienced. But basically, if you look in there, this is the only place I found which is on this rear outrigger, and you can see it's rotted all the way through the wall of the chassis. And I guess the reason for that is, well, why, if you look at this one, it's fully intact, no dramas, and the reason is because it's opened. There's water and mud and everything can't get trapped in there, and I understand there's a difference between the two. One's a support for the rear springs and the other one just supports the body, but I think, well, my expert opinion is that I think the reason why these are always so bad is because up on the end, that is a stiffener welded in to stiffen up the weight that's put down on that bracket and that gusset. And you can see that it's in line, it's welded in line with that gusset. But the major problem with that, I do not understand why that wasn't continued down, because that's where a lot of the crap goes in, and then it settles down in there, and that's why you have it. So, you know, there is holes, factory holes underneath through that, you know, and if the hole's too small, the crap can't get out and it blocks up and then it can't drain through. But anyway, I'm gonna redo that and continue that stiffener all the way down so there's no gap, and then we'll put the factory holes back, but I'm going to make it bigger. Obviously, holes have to be bigger, so for the galvanising process. And I guess those who don't really understand the galvanising process or the hot dip process is that it has to be vented internally. So say an example here where a hollow, that's hollow, fully hollow section comes to another hollow section, there has to be holes in this plane or in that side of those chassis in full. Well, we'll get into the specifics of it, but it's not just a random do what you want. And I guess some countries are different, but in Australia they are pretty pedantic and they do check to see it's vented properly, because if that's left the way it is and there's no holes for the molten zinc to pass through all the sections, like it has to continue all the way through when they dip it, it's just like a bomb. So that would heat up, because this molten zinc, liquid molten zinc, it's extremely dangerous, and it's obviously extremely hot, and that can heat up like a pressure vessel, because there's no pressure relief, and that expands and it'll blow out at the weakest spot. And then when that happens in a zinc bath, that explodes molten zinc up in the air, and it can land on the workers around the plant and obviously just burn a hole straight through you. So there's a couple of reasons. And another thing too, the bigger the hole, the better the transfer of zinc through your chassis, and the less chance of hang up of zinc. So they charge me, because I get a fair bit of hot dip galvanising done. They charge you weight when it goes out. So the more zinc that gets trapped in here, you'll be paying for the extra zinc, because it's charged on the weight, because the steels obviously comes in. Let's say this weighs 500 kilo, which it doesn't, but it might come out 530 kilo. That's an exaggeration, but that's just how it works. So I'm not too sure if Landrover designed all their chassis to be hot dip galvanised and they were all formatted the same, but I was keen to double check, because there's a lot of extra work. You can't just take this, strip everything off and take it to a galvaniser. So basically over here I did a little test, because I wanted to actually see if it was vented. So I cut of the rear hanger, I cut this out with a grinder, and if you look in there, there's 3 holes, and that's what we're talking about. That's technically a vent, but it's not. Those holes are too small, and there's a couple of ways. I'll show you if you're interested. There should be 4 holes one in each corner, or the hole gets, if you want to just put one, you would have one massive hole in the middle. So it's a lot. Well, most people have smaller drills, and it's a lot easier to drill a smaller hole than say a hole that size. But I'd imagine for this to be vented properly for the Australian standards, the hole would have to be bigger, as big or bigger than that, if you wanted to do one smack bang in the middle. But as you can see, like the chassis in there, you know, is good, and it's only these places that I just think it's poor engineering. So you look on this side, you can see exactly the same. It's obviously rotted through that same spot. So anyway, that's a bit of an insight. So as you can see, all these holes, well, you can see where I've marked with those crosses. So that means that those 4 places, I would have to have 4 holes on the other side of the chassis rail, and to do that properly, I'm going to drill straight through both sides of the chassis, and then like I've got a my rotor brooch here, which will go all the way through. You can see that. And then I'm going to grommet, once it gets galvanised, I'll make sure the grommet fits the drill, and I'll grommet the outside places of the chassis, just so crap can't get in. Because I'm not, or I could cut exactly what I've done here. I could cut all that out and drill through and then weld a new piece back in. But anyway, I'll show you the specifics of it, just so I can point out what's actually required if you want to do it properly. And I mean, you can buy a chassis galvanised from the UK, but you'd have to have some serious money to get it shipped over to Australia, galvanised. And I know that there's other manufacturers that do it, but I'm not aware that there's any in Australia that provide a galvanised chassis. You can just buy it and get it shipped. Yeah, it's shipping, like, it's ridiculous. But anyway, so here we go. This is the design for galvanising, and it's the Galvanising Association of Australia. So it'll go through and it'll explain, hollow sections, how they do it. So obviously they lift it out, and they don't know which end to drain it from. Like, they don't care, they just bring it up. So that's why all your vents, regardless of which angle that they pull it out with and drain it, it has to be vented so the zinc can flow out properly. So you'll see, so there's a bit of pipe with a base plate welded on it, and if you look, they prefer that, say that pipe's, if it's a handrail, it'll be 38 MB pipe. They prefer that the hole is exactly the same as that pipe. So that's like a 40 mil, maybe a 45 mil hole there. Or they want two holes, but you can't have one tiny little hole in the middle. And another example of what we're talking about, if you were going to galvanise that T pipe, it would have to be cut out. You couldn't just butt that pipe on the other and weld around it. You either drill a massive hole in that pipe, or you cut it out so all the zinc can flow through those bits. So, there's a fair bit involved in it, but what I really wanted to show you is that section that we're going to galvanise is, I'll get my ruler here. So basically, it's 150 by 100, and this chassis is what, 2.5 mil, which is a pretty, it's obviously gauge or whatever the UK standard is, but here I've got some 150 by 100 RHS, which is 4 mil thick, and it's 300 long. So I've cut a piece, that piece exactly, which I'll trim down and make up the new bit and refabricate that whole bit. I know it's a bit thicker, but it's gonna do the job, and I can reproduce all those bits and it's ready to go. And if you do notice, I have made, if you're wondering what this is on here, that's just a jig to reposition these brand new outriggers. It's all screwed in at the top, the side. It's all got a reference point from the chassis here and there, and the same. I've put bolts in there with a nylock, and I've measured all these distances from there to there, there, and basically this plate here gets the alignment that way, and that one there will clamp him up and bolt him through here so it's nice and plumb. And I do have a measurement from, I'll put a bolt through there back to this outrigger over here, so I know I'm square that way. So really all I got to do is cut that off, refabricate that bit, put the jig back on, bolt it up and tack it in and weld it out. What I am going to do in here, once this is gone, is cut that side of the chassis out and put a piece in with correlating vent gal holes for the zinc to flow through this and out here, or in here and out there. It just depends which way they put in the bath. But anyway, so back to this. So if we're looking at RHS, we just said we've got a 150 by 100, which is this one. So if you look up, if you wanted to put one hole in one corner, you're looking at a 45mm hole. And I don't know how many people have got a 45mm drill. Next hole over is 35. So that's saying if you want to put two holes diagonally, obviously the hole size, well, the diameter of the hole starts reducing per number of vents you put in, and obviously the red dots show the location of where you got to put the hole in relation to the section size. So that was 30mm. So the next one over, 20mm. Actually, sorry, we're looking at the wrong one. Down one. So we were 35mm if you want to put two holes in, and 25mm if you want to put four holes in. So we're going to go the 25mm holes in 4 locations. So that's every location in every hollow ended section that has no vent or no anchor, and the holes in it are only, they're not even 9mm, so they're inadequate.